Welcome to Power Up, the podcast that uncovers the unique challenges women leaders face today. Join your hosts, Nat and Kristen, as we dive into the tough topics and provide actionable insights you can apply right now. Don't forget to hit subscribe so you don't miss any episodes.
Okay, today we're going to talk about reading the room and all the little cues and nudges and signals we get if we're paying attention. But first, Kristen, we are both huge fans of learning the origins behind words. And you sent me one today, and I feel like we're going to say goodbye now. So you can tell us the origin of the word goodbye, and then I have one for you.
Okay. Oh my gosh, I can't remember all the details, but from what it was a few hundred years ago. So back, I don't know, let's say 15th century. It's probably way earlier, like maybe the 14th century. I have no idea. But effectively in England, in ye old English, people would say, God be with ye. God be with ye every time you left an interaction. God be with ye, to give someone a blessing on their way. And because it became such a normal way when you were leaving one another to say to one another, you started saying it very quickly. God be with ye, God be with ye, God be. I can't even say it quickly enough to get from there to people started to just shorten it to goodbye. And so God be with ye turned into goodbye. That's where it came from.
That one.
Yeah.
My one is the origin of slapstick comedy. They used to have a literal slapstick. And so when you went to look like you were slapping someone across the face, they'd slap the stick and make it sound like the slap hit. There you go, everyone. You are welcome.
Oh, I got you. Okay, good one. I like it.
We were going to start today with a story of people watching each.
Yeah.
Do you have one that you
I have two, but you jump in with one at any point.
Okay. Well, I'm happy to start. Well, I have literally, Kyla's just come back from dropping our foster puppy back at the SPCA, the animal shelter, and having a foster puppy gives you a lot of opportunities to read the room, because the way people interact with the puppy, so there's a couple of things where people hype up the puppy, or the tension rises as people get stressed about the puppy, or telling the puppy off, and you just it's just given me a lot of opportunities over the weekend to go, all the puppy wants is calm, but all of us, you see the dynamics responding and interpreting and wanting something. And so I think if you have a dog or a pet, pay attention. That's a really easy, interesting way to see how people, the vibe of the room, the tension, the energy changes so quickly depending on what the puppy does.
That's so true. That brought back a few memories of my dog running up to say hello to someone who may or may not want to touch it, including a football friend of Grayson's who's Muslim. And apparently when a dog touches them, it's I don't know, it's not good for many, many years.
I didn't realize that.
Nor did I until I saw this person who looked... So is that part of the
Muslim religion, is that dogs are dirty? Almost? Dirty.
And it was if they touch it, they have to do something for 7 years. I did ask about it after the fact, because he looked so frightened of the dog. Thankfully, she never touched him.
Thank goodness.
But that was so noticing that I was like, oh my gosh, are you frightened of the dog? Observing those patterns. But equally, when you have a dog that goes up to say hello to another dog who might be what's it called? Reactionary or something like that. And then you can just sense the stress.
Yeah.
Thankfully, my dog is needy, so she does have okay recall. But anyway.
But dogs are actually really good at that. You watch dogs come up at each other and they're sniffing and they're sensing what each other's vibe is. And so
we should... so we should sniff each other's butts. No one ever told me that, by the way, that's how they, sense
and each other's poos as well. I'm sorry. I have done so much poo chat in the last week that I'm I have to get poo back out of my vocab.
Okay, good. We will do that here. I've got two recent, when I've sat and thought about people watching and observing, actually just more than watching, observing. I did two things. Number one was in Japan, and I was in Tokyo in Harajuku. And of course, I wanted to see a Harajuku girl who is one of those beautifully dressed girls. In fact, they are young women who dress like, I don't know, you might describe it as little girls. Like everything is really cutesy and frilly and pink and short but big platform shoes. And they even wear almost, I know it's not the right term, but doilies on their heads. Like
Yeah,
everything
it's
is
like
just,
a real fashion
it's a
statement.
thing. It's a thing, started in the 90s. And I was observing a Harajuku girl. And I was just going, what is it like? How does that person engage in the world around them, and how might they even go to work, because that would not be acceptable at a workplace in Japan? What do they do for a living? And observing how that person walked with such confidence, dressed up like a little doll. It was so fascinating, which led me to research on Harajuku girls. Turns out that it is an absolute fu to the system. It's completely
Mm.
opposite to what you might think. And because everyone for the most part in Japan, if you are an office worker, you wear black. The men wear black suits, black ties. Women wear black skirt suits, and very demure. And a Harajuku girl was like trying to show their feminism and railing against the system that wanted them to conform as robots. And that was their expression of feminism, of Harajuku girl, which I found fascinating. So that was a really nice observation, thinking about a person and then diving into research, which you and I love. And then the other one was just yesterday. We stopped in oh gosh, what's it called? Bunnings? What is that called?
Yeah,
Home,
the hardware store.
hardware store, home improvement store, building store, whatever. Stopped in a store, and I was walking down an aisle, past an aisle, like kind of directionless, as like my husband charged ahead to find something, and I heard a little boy whining up at his dad, but the mom was there too. So there was a little, probably 1 or 2 year old that was whining, and I kind of just watched, and it was really interesting to watch the interaction between the little boy and the dad, and how the dad responded, and how the dad said, "What do you need?" and picked the little boy up and had this conversation with a 1.5-year-old boy. And I was just like noticing how he was responding to the child. I was thinking, in no judgment whatsoever, like I was actually really curious. I was like, how might I have responded when my kids were that age? And isn't that interesting? And it got me thinking about how involved dads are, and how this person was really in tune with the emotional needs of his son. And it was just really interesting to observe that behavior. And then I moved on.
I think that you often, if anyone wants to practice this observation, I feel like the example I was going to give as well was at a restaurant up north when we were on holiday, and our waiter very early on showcased immense amounts of knowledge about the area, and he was funny and he told great stories. And then he had a shtick about, this is my first day on the job, which of course I didn't believe, but turns out he'd left and come back. And watching how he navigated amongst the other waiters and the other staff, and you get to pick up on who's kind of unofficially running the show. Caveat here before we move on to actually watching. This is why we often mention the importance of not rushing in late looking frazzled, or apologizing profusely, or jumping in with an array of whatevers, is because other people are reading the room. And when you come into a room or a video call with just like a flurry of negative energy or frazzled energy or stressed energy, people very quickly pick up on that. And that first impression thing really does matter. And you can alter the tone very quickly. It does tweak the tone, but also position yourself as a overwhelmed person. And that's why those really early cues make a big difference. So as we're going through this, and think about how your behavior might be perceived as you are in different situations too. Like we talk about cameras off, all sorts of stuff that have a cue that other people pick up on.
Yeah. The reason we wanted to chat about reading the room, well, I don't know, probably just it came up in conversation. We were chatting with power suiters about it. I mean, that's why. But what we do believe is it really is a superpower skill. I remember when this whole concept of EQ came out, emotional quotient, and while my IQ was fine, my EQ is quite high, and this concept of social awareness, like I tend to, and I think without overgeneralizing, I think women have needed to pick up on social cues very early in our lives, to fit in, and to therefore read a room. So I think it is a superpower skill that many of us have. No stress if it's something you haven't noticed or you don't feel it. We want to describe what it is today and how to actually start to flex that muscle, because we often the content of our meeting or for what we're going to deliver or say in that meeting. We do talk about that quite often in prepping. But what we think is as important for playing, the political chessboard, as you might in a room or in a meeting or a high stakes conversation, is to read the room as well.
And that is probably a really good point to shout out to all our neurodivergent, what do people say, neurospicy people listening in. And we've mentioned this before, but one of those challenges is, and I've noticed this more and more about people we call neurotypical, even though I disagree anyone's typical, some of the pleasantries, the how are yous and the
Eye
you must
contact.
do this, and how they're actually incredibly confusing things to say, and it can put someone on the back foot. So even if you are listening to this thinking, oh my gosh, I have low, what is it, EQ, or I am neurodivergent and I don't pick up on usual skills, use this as a little bit of a checklist. Usual skills, usual cues, just use it as a checklist, and maybe just see if there's any way during your next meeting and your next conversation at a cafe, just pay attention and see if there's something that you go, now I'm paying attention to it. Maybe there's something here that I can really focus on next time. And maybe not. That's fine too. I just want to be very clear that not all of us see the world in the same way, and that can be utterly confusing in this world.
And I think some of this stuff, again, like you said, is observable, it's learnable, it can be checklisted. And one thing to note is maybe don't start practicing it in a Zoom or Teams environment, because on screen can be really hard to pick up those cues, which in fact puts, I think, those that are calling into Zoom on a screen versus those that are in the room at the same time, it puts those that are calling in at a great disadvantage in terms of being able to read what actually is happening in the room. We're fans of either everyone on a screen or everyone in person, and like even when
everyone
we deliver
on individual screens, not kind of
that's right,
tuning in,
everyone individual screens, because when we deliver events and oh my gosh, it's hybrid, it's that you just, it's so tough to engage and read, and so interesting.
But even in
anyway,
general meetings, I think we added it in our newsletter a couple of weeks ago, they're really, unless you are an expert facilitator, meetings should be all in person or all on individual devices. There's very few times I've seen that hybrid go well, and it really does put people at a disadvantage. So maybe that's a hot tip to take away, if nothing else. How do you plan meetings to make sure everyone is one or the other, and give it an experiment and see if it makes a difference?
Okay, well, I'm going to kick off with a few ways to read the room. Well, like, what are some things that we can pick up on before we actually move into a little bit of a checklist and maybe things to try this week? Is number one, detect the mood. The next time you're in a social situation with humans in a room, detect the mood, or as everyone says now, the vibes. I've caught myself using that a little bit too much recently. The vibes of the So detect the mood of the room. Is it really positive and optimistic? Is it like decision making and action orientated? Is it a venting room? Like, is it a space where people are just airing grievances? Is there an elephant in the room? This is something that I remember very frequently when you got a bunch of senior stakeholders in a room and you know that those two are at war and this person like this person and this big thing is unsaid. You can just feel that elephant in the room. Notice if there's something going on there. Notice body language in which sometimes can display energy levels. Notice how distracted or engaged people are, who's on their phone, kind of that kind of thing. So start to just detect the mood or the vibe.
I'm going to do the second one, which is going probably one step below that, down to individuals more, or groups. And again, this is something that's really easy to prepare for. Who are the people doing all the talking? Who are the people listening and writing notes? Who are the people who have appeared to totally check out? And the reason I say this is one to prep for is you can actually ask people how they prefer to behave in meetings. There are people who just think on their feet and they're right in there. There are people who prefer to go away and think about it and want to prepare beforehand. So getting an idea of are the different ways of acting in the room. Sometimes our gut feel could be if they're different from us, like the loud people are dominating and they want their ideas heard, whereas actually they may just be like, that's how they process. The quiet people are disengaged. Well, actually, that's how they process. So getting clear on more at a granular level, who's doing what, and is it the same as they usually operate, or is it different from how they usually operate? And even challenging yourself to look beyond your own biases and going, just because they're behaving like that, does that mean something? And can I check in with them afterwards or beforehand next time and say, how do you prefer to run these things?
Yeah, like that, which lends nicely, I think, as well to this concept of power and who holds it in a given situation. And it can jump, of course, during an engagement. But if you are in a room, it's not necessarily the person that is most senior who holds the power. And what we mean by that is, and Nat, you sometimes have referred to like watching The Apprentice. And if you just watch a show, if you just watch a board meeting or of teams meeting in The Apprentice, quite often it's like someone who has who others are looking to. There's sometimes that dynamic, or one person will get interrupted more often, or who's shutting interruptions down, or who is starting and framing the conversation, who is summarizing and closing the conversation of key learnings. That's often a sign of power and or influence, can be used interchangeably in a social setting.
And then following from that is where they sit on whatever the topic is. Because again, sometimes we can perceive silence to be someone who is on board or happy with what's happening. And often those are the people who go out and have a separate meeting, or who are silently resisting. So who is giving you the cues that they are in favor or against or have questions? And so I think that is also, especially because most of the time when we're in meetings, we're discussing something, hopefully. And this is something that you should practice the whole way through. And we talk about that a lot here because we both do a lot of video calls. And my girlfriend particularly is in large group meetings and will often say, oh, you could tell when someone totally switched and really didn't like something, or they were, and that's not always anything said. Sometimes it's a change in face and in body language. And so you start to pick up on those things. And again, note those things down as you go through. Like, it's kind of an interesting exercise to note down, oh, this changed here, because you can go and follow up afterwards and say, hey, I thought from what I saw, it looked like you hesitated there. I'm really curious to know if there was something that you didn't add, if they're not someone who likes to talk on the spot.
Yes. I wanted to just get back to power quickly. And this might be a whole other podcast of like
power.
of where to sit. Because there's this concept of like proximal power. And what that actually means is literally where you sit and what it indicates in terms of like your influence. And that's often like, it's a psychological thing of where you often sit. So the core idea is quite often there is, as we know, the head of a table. So a lot of board meetings, the chair will sit at the head, or the someone that is running the meeting. And this is a classic high power seat. Often the head of a boardroom table. We see all those shows where often it was old, back in, oh my gosh, what was that incredible long running series? It was so good. Mad Men, where it's the dad is always at the head of the dinner table, like all that stuff. So head of the table is possibly still a classic high power seat. Directly opposite that puts you in direct visual competition, because it is about eyes on, and the head of the table is the easiest to have direct eyes on. So like you position, often they say in negotiation, sit directly across the person. So you've got that like power as well, that situation of direct sight of that person. And then equally, I've heard of quite often at a, in a boardroom table, and people come in to observe or something, and there's seats on the outside of the, like not at the table, like obvious, the worst possible place for proximal power. Like it literally shows you are not part of the conversation.
Oh, that happens in politics all the time, right? Like you're sitting along the wall and the real power brokers are at the table.
I know, they're like what are those people called that like shoo them to their next meetings and prep them? They're like amazing, but what advisors? What are they called? Anyway, like it kind of it's an interesting power. Like they're not the power holders, but nonetheless, they're, supporters. But I think corners are seen as the most collaborative and least threatening, because I don't know why, like it's just that a lot of people
you've got more surrounding people. You're open to more, you're in close proximity to more people.
Yeah, exactly. Anyway, so interesting in terms of like proximal power. Notice where people sit and why. Like just start the next time you go to your meeting. Maybe
Yeah.
not why, but notice where people sit.
Where they
That feels
sit
like a
and do
really
they sit in the same
easy
place?
place.
It's funny, I
Yeah.
always have a hesitation sitting at the head of the table. I wonder if that's really British. But like when we go into physical meeting rooms, it's very rare I'll sit at the head of the table. And I think when someone does, there's often a little sort of joke made about, oh, you can be at the head of the table. So there
Yeah.
is like this unconscious thing there.
Is there an unconscious thing where you want people to feel comfortable and so you don't?
Oh, yeah, well, I mean, it's the same
Yeah.
as and I did this once in the US, and I was for PowerSuit doing a workshop for their women's program, and the CEO, who was a man, walked in and addressed this group, and the way he did it was very casual, but he stayed standing, and I was like, "Oh, sit down," because I was like, "You're meant to be sitting alongside this group. Like, you need to come in and assert, like, I'm standing and present." Like, I said it in a jokey way, and he actually sat down, and I was just like, "Oh, come on, dude." It's like a real power play. And I was like, "I get it. Like, you are spending a lot of time asserting that authority, but in some situations, read the room and do it slightly differently." I would say translating that where you fit in to a virtual world, a couple of tips there is you can tell, like, you can convey a lot through how someone presents themselves online. So having I think it's probably controversial. It's probably different people think different things about the fuzzy backgrounds. I personally hate them. I feel like it feels weird. It's like kind of jarring. I don't like obviously do it if you need to, and if you are living in a room where it might be like a bed behind you or something, you feel uncomfortable. Absolutely fine. Like it's not the end of the world. But having a fun, interesting background can be a nice thing. But also good lighting. Good lighting and good audio. I've talked to someone the other day and she was in a car and she cut out like every 2 minutes, and I was like, "Oh, so annoying talking to you."
Because all
So
you're thinking about is that, not the
yes.
substance, not the relationship.
Yes. So
Interesting.
effectively, how can you create the head of the table seat online? And I think a lot of that is about the quality of your audio. I mean, I am saying this, do as I say, not as I do, slumming it here in my hoodie and my hair half brushed, but
Mm.
we're not recording. We're going to start doing videos maybe next week of our
Yeah.
podcast. So this is
Although, if he does a video this week, I'm putting it up.
okay, well, do as I say, not as I do. But how do you create that head of the table vibe? And it is lighting. There's a lot of tools on your video
Well,
tools these
posture.
days.
Remember, was it Kim
Yep,
Berlucci did
posture.
a mini masterclass? It's on demand right now for power suitors listening in, and it is literally about you do a zip. You have your feet flat on the floor, and you do a zip from your feet all the way up to the top of your head. I'm actually doing it right now. Just imagine me just sitting up elegantly and straight, with zipping my body up, and that is a real, I suppose, power/confidence move when you're in
I'm
a meeting.
watching the new season of, oh my gosh, everything we know I got from TV, but I'm watching the new season of Jury Duty. You know, that reality TV show where he was the only one who didn't realize it was a reality TV show and
I
everyone else was
saw
an actor?
ads for it, but I haven't watched it.
Oh, you should totally watch it.
It's
It's
so
it's
good.
delightful. But season 2's out now, and one of the women on it has like almost like a dog, electric dog shock collar thing on, and every time she slumps it zzz, and she's like zzz, and sits up straight. I'm like, I need one of them.
That's so good. I have two examples before we go into like just some quick invitation tips in terms of where I've noticed reading the room. Like if you want to watch it in action, my first suggestion is if you haven't seen Secession, however you'd like to say it, that is a fabulous and very intense drama. Love it. It's off the Rudolph family, big, billionaire Australian
Rudolph?
/ England English. Say again. What's his name?
Rupert Murdoch.
Rupert Murdoch. Thank you.
I like how you
Thank you.
transformed that into Rudolph.
Rudolph,
That's
Rudy. I
that's
just
a
like
God
put
be
it
with ya.
together.
That's a
Yeah.
merge
So
it together, shorten it, and make it a new
any
word.
of their board meetings, because you can just imagine the power, the head of the household, in the patriarch, and then the children all vying for, roles and yeah, everyone's conniving. It's so fascinating. And then of course you have all the lackeys in the business and those that are vying for power and position. That is fascinating to watch. If you were just to watch an episode to kind of get a sense of reading the room, they have lots of board meetings and meetings. So that's quite interesting. The other one that I, as a Canadian, loved was the interaction where Carney was I mean, really any White House interaction really with Trump is a fascinating read the room situation at the moment. So just what if it comes up on the news, just watch it, watch facial language, and they'll be very careful naturally. But I loved how Carney, and that one went viral, his interaction with Trump, where Trump is like, we're going to, buy Canada. And he just is just this calm demeanor. You can see the wheels turning in his head. And he's like, well, I've checked with the owners of Canada and it's not for sale. And there's just these fabulous interactions of reading of power. And you come out of that going, I know who won. It was fascinating. But that's another great one to search. Any come to mind for you? You've
Yes,
mentioned,
I hate Succession because I feel like that power trip stuff, it makes me want to vomit. Like I couldn't watch it. I was like, and I do think depending on where you operate in the world, I'm sure there's lots of boardrooms like that, and there's lots of, but it just to me is like, don't do business that way. I liked The West Wing. West Wing's my favorite show anyway, but I really liked, he was a masterclass, in my opinion, the president, of how he changed the tone in the room. The physical room, like he'd sometimes be sitting on the couches in the Oval Office, and that would be less formal and everyone would be welcome to come and sit there. Other times you notice he sits behind his very intimidating desk, and that showed a different thing. Other times they're in meeting rooms, the way he walked in, when he stood, when he sat. And that was all, to me, a really nuanced version of creating the right environment for the right situation. And some of it was more collaborative and having to create that environment, which a lot of leaders do, where you actually want everyone's voices to be heard equally, and you want to get that collaboration, which doesn't come from that succession type meeting. And then other times where you are making the call and you have to sort of position yourself in that way. So I think, to me, that's an example of where we can all change the vibe of the room, using, to steal from you, vibe of the room in a way that is appropriate for the situation. But that's mainly because I hate Succession. I think they're
so
idiots.
Good. It was a fabulous drama. It was so good, everyone. At least give it a try. Okay, let's chat about some signals to observe in the upcoming week. So my first suggestion is observe who opens the meeting, who speaks first, and who speaks last. Just take your next meeting, and did they use that to their advantage in terms of really creating that vibe, and or summarizing what went on, or action, and who was it and how did that make you feel and what did you observe about that? So that's the first thing to observe.
I would follow up with that one with who's speaking when. And I don't mean first and last, but throughout the meeting. I've just come from a webinar I was watching, and there was this Q&A, and there was one person, I don't want to use the word dominating, but asking a lot of questions in a way that I was observing and going, is this helpful, or are they getting irritated? Because they probably shouldn't be, because they were good questions. But there's something about when that flips over to maybe, I don't know, not being as welcomed. And I also had a friend who went to a board meeting and really tested a new approach, which we love, an experimental mindset. And I think we can all do this every meeting as an experiment, where she deliberately passed every question. She was in a power position in the room, but passed every question around and then only did the closing. And she had observed that from someone else and wanted to test it on for size. So thinking about throughout the meeting or situation, who's talking and how welcomed is that talking, and welcomed, but also how does it land? Is it landing with strength and people are paying attention, or is it just becoming sort of the chit chat in the room?
Okay. And I am going to add next, look out for those micro moments. And so this means actually watching everyone in the room, depending on where you're sitting. Are there some micro moments that you can pick up of alignment? So do you see people like quietly nodding, for example, or jotting down notes? Do you see looks of dissent between two people that clearly are irritated or don't agree, but unwilling to speak up? So start to look for some of those moments, either of alignment or disagreement in your next meeting.
I'd follow that with who's performing for who. And this is, we've just finished a mini masterclass on decision making, and it was Rhiannon McKinnon, who is an exceptional CEO. She coaches CEOs, and talking about how a lot of us don't flex that decision making muscle until we have to. And it's really hard to make decisions. Like, big decisions are really hard. You never have enough time. You never have enough information. How do you make them, and how do you make them well? And there's a lot of meetings that I've been in where there is someone in the power seat and everyone else is performing for them. And I'm like, what a waste of a meeting. Like, how do we not have the environment where everyone is contributing to this meeting? So if you are paying attention to, and is it the direct leader? Are they trying to sort of network up to the CEO or whatever it is? Or is it that there are, I don't know, two friends who are like sort of to add to those micro moments, who are in there taking the piss out of the meeting and other people in the meeting? Like, what are the things that are happening that are sort of people are doing it for someone or a bunch of people to pay attention to?
Yeah. I will add my final one, which is, we already chatted about this a little bit, but where are people sitting? Just see if there's something there still in a modern workplace, if that's how you describe your workplace. But yeah, where are people sitting, and what does that do to the vibe of the room?
And my final one is neither right or wrong, but the chatter, the small talk, and different cultures have different approaches to small talk, but who is engaging? And again, if you're online, who is got their camera on and having a quick chit chat beforehand, who's sitting there silently, who's maybe not there because you can't even see, all of that, who's coming in hot, who's coming in friendly. Just pay attention. And this is a longitudinal study where you can see how people might change over time, because that can indicate more so than just a one-off how they behave usually, and that gives you the ability to see any changes and go, "Ooh, something happened there that I should check in on or pay attention to," or whatever it might be.
Fun. Thanks everyone for tuning in. Pass it along to all of your colleagues. We want everyone to read the room. We want you to have a hyper advantage in the room. So please feel free to share. If you have questions about Powersuit, we'd love to answer them. Powersuit.com. Any last words, Nat?
God be with ye.
God be with ye. Goodbye. Thanks, everyone. We'll catch you next time.
Bye.